Hey friends, welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast. Come join me, your host Nicole, for some hope-filled conversations about heartfelt entertainment that makes your heart swing. Hey Hearties, welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast. I'm your host Nicole, joined once again by my friend and guest co-host for the season, Theresa from the Heartie Observer, to chat about When Calls the Heart, Season 10, Episode 2, Hope Springs. It was written by Derek Thompson and directed by Neil Fernley. Everyone is buzzing with talk of the hot springs and how they will help the town. Elizabeth and Lucas host Aunt Agatha and Julie on an interesting visit to Hope Valley. What did you think about this episode, Theresa?
Well, first and foremost, it was also the 100th
100th episode
of When
yes.
Calls the Heart, which is a big deal. So
Yes.
shout out to everyone, all the cast and
Yes.
crew. Like, congratulations. That's a huge
Yes.
accomplishment.
Past and present.
Yes.
This show would not have gotten to where it is without each and every person.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And yeah, it didn't really feel like, like 100th episode, like, oh, we're gonna, like do this big celebration. But it had that old timey When Calls the Heart feel, which I really liked.
Yes. I do wish that they had brought more of the older characters back for this special 100th episode. I think that would have been nice.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would have loved some older like references too, like kind of like people throwing in some like little bit of fan service in there for that, just because it was the 100th. But I heard Derek Thompson said in his interview, I believe, with Heart to Hearties that he didn't actually know that this was the 100th episode that he was writing until after he wrote it, I believe. So
that's interesting. I don't really know how they counted those because
I don't know either. Yeah.
I didn't even know this until recently. There were unaired episodes of season 2.
Are you serious? I did not know that. Wow.
Apparently. I don't know if he said that in the interview. I haven't actually watched it yet.
That's so interesting.
And then we know that there were unaired episodes from season, what was it, 6?
Mm-hmm.
That Abigail
I knew there was at
in.
least one. Yeah. There's at least
and then
one
they
out there.
Had to rewrite because of all that happened with her. So
right, exactly. Yeah.
I kind of wish we had seen that episode when she meets Nathan.
Me too. I'm still a little bit salty about that.
I think I saw on Instagram one of the Hearties posted a clip of the scene where she meets Nathan. I can't remember who it was, but
I have seen that scene. You can still find it out there. It's in the extended preview for Heart of a Mountie, which is episode 4 of season 6, which is Nathan's first episode. And you can actually see the clip where she meets Nathan after the preview. But anything else from that episode you can't really find.
Kind of sad.
I know. It's so sad.
I wonder if it's on the season 6 DVD.
Could be. Definitely could be.
I don't know. I actually haven't gone back to watch season 6 in a while. So.
Yeah, season 6 is a good one.
Yes, it is.
It's one of my favorites for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, how about we get to that 100th episode?
Talk about season 10, yeah.
Yes. Do we want to start with Elizabeth, Little Jack, and Lucas again?
Sure, yeah.
This first talk with Elizabeth and Rosemary outside the saloon. This was kind of comical. She says, when you're nervous, you fidget, because they're waiting for Julie and Aunt Agatha.
Right.
That was hilarious. And then Rosemary is talking about Lucas never getting nervous. And then we see him walk out of the saloon nervous.
Yeah. I was like, that's his cue to walk out, extremely nervous. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, how does my tie look?
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like that was like that like little millisecond there of Lucas being nervous was the only time he showed he was nervous. The rest of the episode he was like very calm and very chill, but that 1 minute like right before he met them, he was like so nervous, which I think is very natural for a guy meeting his future in-laws for sure.
I thought it was sweet, the pep talk that Elizabeth gave to Lucas. You know, she was like, it's gonna be okay, you're gonna do great.
Yeah. Yes, that was sweet.
Yeah, and little Jack chilling in the background playing with his toy train. He's like, where are they? That was adorable.
Yeah, that was cute. He was super cute. Yeah.
And Bill, I heard the family's coming to meet you. Good luck with that.
That's the most Bill thing he could ever say. It's so funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
That reunion. Why don't we just talk about that? Because that was one of the most comical moments of the episode.
For sure. I mean, Aunt Agatha has lost none of her sass over the years.
She was a highlight of season 2 for me.
For sure. Yes, she's so funny in season 2. And yeah, she gets right off the right out of the car and she's just like, oh, you're the man who thinks he's gonna marry my niece, and you're like, whoa, okay. But of course she's joking, you know.
Yes. And then after she has that cute little interaction with Jack, she and Julie start to, I guess, walk in the saloon, and she's like, what is that odor? And Julie's like, it's the horses, we're living on the frontier or something along those lines.
Yep.
We're on the frontier.
Oh my gosh. It kind of reminded me of you know, when Julie first came to Hope Valley
there,
and she steps in the horse poo. Yeah. She's just like, frontier life. Super funny.
Yeah.
I like that callback.
Yes. Classic scene.
Absolutely.
I just love in that scene Jack's reaction. It's like, oh boy, now there's 2 of them.
Yes, he's like, oh, I'm overwhelmed now.
Oh my goodness.
Super funny.
The wedding planning meeting with Elizabeth, Rosemary, Julie, and Agatha. That was another comical scene.
Yeah. I loved how like Rosemary's like, you know, trying to stand up for Elizabeth, but also like on the verge of getting caught up in the whole whirlwind because that's what Rosemary does.
Yeah.
And then she starts like making up words for the wedding's motif. That was hilarious.
Yes. It's where fairy tales meet countryside charm.
Yeah, she starts out a little uncertain and she's like, and then it's just off to the races from there.
Yeah. Yes. And when they're talking about the ideas that Rosemary has, and they get to the second one with the hat, and Julie says, that would be the absolute berries if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah. It was so Julie to say that too, because Julie's always like on like, she's always for trying some revolutionary fashion or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I actually did like the look of the cloche hat, maybe just not for Elizabeth, but it was very pretty. It just maybe not for Elizabeth.
I think if I were to pick between the 2 designs, I would choose the first one.
Really? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably choose the first one too, but
the
closed hat would look good. Yeah.
So big, yeah.
Yeah.
I do like how Elizabeth says she doesn't want anything lavish, just something simple.
Yeah, I mean, it is her second wedding, and her first wedding was very lavish.
Yes.
With all of the trimmings and the huge dress, and everything was like to the nines in Hope Valley standards. So I can see why she wants something a little more simple. And
it's kind of interesting. Now this is kind of going off topic a little bit, back to season 5, but I think I remember after the wedding episode aired, there were comparisons going on between Jack and Elizabeth's wedding attire and William and Kate's wedding attire, like the royal.
Oh yeah. Now that you say that, that actually makes perfect sense. Because
Because
Elizabeth's dress looked very much like
very
Kate's dress.
similar to
Yeah.
Kate's. Yeah.
Yeah. I do find it interesting how she's going with a mermaid this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of shows like there's like a style change, like 20s,
Yeah.
I guess.
hmm
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing how the dress actually
Oh yeah, for sure.
looks. Elizabeth and Rosemary having a conversation at the row house. Little Jack and the elusive tadpoles are keeping Julie and Agatha busy.
When I heard that, I was like, yeah, there's no way tadpoles are gonna keep Julian and Agatha busy for long.
No,
But yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
yeah. Of course, Elizabeth thanks Rosemary for always being there for her. And then Lee comes down and, he's getting ready to go off to his meeting with Mr. Barnaby. He tells Rosemary to follow Faith's advice about listening to her body and resting. One of the funniest lines in the episode. I am listening to my body, and my body is telling me that my husband needs my help, and you're coming with me.
Classic Rosemary.
Yes.
Wanting to help Lee out in his business
Yeah.
transactions. I did think
Yes.
that was pretty funny.
Yes.
Yeah, I find it funny because everyone's like trying to be super like careful with her
Yeah.
because she is pretty far out.
Yes.
But a lot of times I feel like because I have a sister who's been
Mhm.
pregnant twice. I think women tend to get a second wind towards the end of their pregnancy where they're kind of like, "Oh, I want to go do all these things right before,
Yeah.
labor and everything." So I did find that funny.
Yeah. It seems
Kind
that
of
way. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of Rosemary's second wind.
Yes. What did you think of the scenes with Lucas and Agatha in the saloon?
Actually, the scene where Lucas and Agatha are playing poker together,
hmm
I
Yes.
actually thought that was one of the best scenes of the episode.
Yes. He lets her
Um,
win. He
mhm.
folds and lets
Yeah,
Agatha win.
yeah, and it kind of just represents that he's willing to lose or like let go of a bigger
Yes.
pot
Yeah.
for what he has, basically.
hmm Yeah.
And
That was a nice moment.
yeah, and I think that I always love the poker scenes in When Calls the Heart, so this was definitely not an exception there. I loved
Yeah.
it. It was great, and I feel like poker, like deep conversations happening over poker, is just kind of a thing for When Calls the Heart. It
Yeah.
hasn't really happened in a few seasons, but this like
Yeah.
felt like one of those scenes.
Yeah. There's been some good ones. I'm trying to remember what season it was in, but I think there might have been a good one where maybe it was Lee trying to win something back in a poker game and someone did a trick. Was
That
that
was season
Rosemary?
2, and that was Lee and Rosemary. Classic
That's
scene.
yeah.
Yes,
That was
I
the
love
exact
that
one I
one.
was thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very, very iconic,
Yes.
really good one. There's also a few with Bill and Henry, which are really
Yes.
good.
Yes.
I feel like there's another one out there too, where someone I feel like there's like a judge among all the
Yeah.
many judges that come through Hope Valley that has like a poker game or something.
Yeah.
There's quite a few, but I really
Yes.
liked this like new addition to that group.
Yeah.
Lucas and Aunt Agatha.
Yeah.
It's
Of
pretty fun.
course, I don't really like gambling per
Yeah.
se, but
Mhm.
there has been some
Yeah.
nice
I mean, I like a
card
good game of
playing.
poker every once in a
Yeah.
while, but we never like play for like money, so
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah.
always for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
This scene, Elizabeth at home with Julie.
Oh my gosh.
Is this the first time we have heard what do you call Elizabeth Lizzie? Oh,
Yeah.
no,
Apart from when
Charlotte.
Charlotte called her Lizzie.
Charlotte, yeah.
Yeah. I've never heard Julie call her Lizzie though.
I know, I haven't either.
Yeah, it
That surprised
definitely
me.
took me aback. I was kind of like,
I was
"Oh,
like, "Okay."
okay. Interesting." Yeah. But I can understand why Elizabeth's angry. I
Yes, I can too.
think, yeah, I think maybe there was a little tad of overreaction, but at the same time,
Yeah.
given her history with Jack, it makes
Mhm.
sense for her to
Yeah.
react that way. But definitely a little bit of an overreaction on
Yeah,
her part.
I agree with that. We find out Julie lives in London and goes to art school, but William wants Julie as a lawyer.
Yeah, I don't really know why William thinks she would be interested in that. Like, does he not remember everything she did as a kid? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe he just wants one of his like kids to be successful,
Yeah.
I guess, in quotation marks, because Elizabeth is successful. They're
Yeah.
obviously just not acknowledging that.
Yeah.
And then Viola married Rich,
Mhm.
which is what you're supposed to do, but
Yes.
it's not the same thing. And I
Mhm.
think he kind of has higher aspirations for
Mhm.
Julie because he kind of knows he's not going to get through to Elizabeth type
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
This was one thing that kind of bothered me about the episode. Like you said, Elizabeth's reaction, I think it was a little over the top with
Mhm.
William and Grace wanting the wedding in Hamilton,
Mhm.
because Grace is unable to travel. I don't see a problem with them maybe having two weddings, maybe one in
Mhm.
Hamilton and a smaller one in Hope Valley.
Exactly. Cuz if it was just that her mother was like had a prior engagement or was too busy to be at her wedding, I can
Yeah.
understand that. But her
Yeah.
mother literally cannot
Is
travel because of
yeah.
health problems. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's just a little bit petty to just kind of be like, "No, you're trying to ruin
Yeah.
my life," and it's like,
Yeah.
"No, your mother can't travel and she wasn't at
Yeah.
your previous wedding
Yeah.
and she wants to be there."
Yes.
Obviously, their motives are a bit nefarious behind there.
Mhm.
Not nefarious, but they have alternative motives for having it
Yes.
there. But
William.
she kind of shot it down before it was, even considered. So I totally
Yeah.
understand your reaction to
Yeah.
that.
I do think it was kind of funny, Julie's reaction to Elizabeth's reaction about Grace reserving St. John's. Elizabeth is like, "She what?" And Julie says, "I know. And I told her that is a step too bold."
Yep. And we all know Julie was probably in favor of it too, but
Yes.
at least she tried.
Yeah.
I think she wants to be near her nephew as well.
Yes.
And
Which is
just like,
understandable.
oh yeah, for sure. And it's like, you do want to be near your family
Mhm.
and you do want to see
Yeah.
them more often. I mean, think about it. They've only seen little Jack like once or twice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they are entitled to feel that way. I mean, they
Mhm.
don't have to do it in the way that they're doing it,
Mhm.
but they are entitled to feel that
Yeah.
way, I would say.
Of course, we know that William and Grace want Lucas to accept a job offer and them move back to Hamilton. This is another thing that bugged me. Again, I think Elizabeth overreacted just a little bit. I think she should have at least given her and Lucas a chance to talk about it more.
Right. And I think we'll probably touch on this more in a little bit, but I
Yeah.
I would say that my biggest struggle with this storyline, apart from it being slightly repetitive
Mhm.
from
Yes.
season 2,
Who?
is that Lucas and Elizabeth did not deal with the issue together. As
No,
in,
they
like,
didn't.
she's over here overreacting. He's, navigating the family dynamics, and then at the
Mhm.
end, they, like they're both there, and he kind of, makes the right choice.
Yeah.
But what if he hadn't? They
Yeah.
hadn't talked about it. Like, what if he
Mhm.
hadn't? I mean, we all knew Lucas was gonna make the right choice.
Yeah.
I mean, we all knew that. But
Yeah.
what if he hadn't? They didn't really talk about it. So
Mm-mm.
it's not their fault, I guess. It's
No.
just more I wish we had got to see them deal with it,
Yes.
grapple with it a little bit.
Yeah. I think we need more conversations with depth from them
Mhm.
because we
Yeah.
haven't gotten enough of them.
Yeah. Cuz I feel like, what they're doing now, and it's not a bad thing. It's
No.
Lucas and Elizabeth. What they do is a lot of times they don't have to communicate, as in like they don't actually have to talk about things to be on the same wavelength, which I understand that.
Mhm.
That's great. That shows that, you know, two peas in a pod.
Mhm.
But there are times and situations where you do need to talk.
Yes.
And it was odd to me how Elizabeth was very hesitant about talking to him.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like, you're engaged. You should be able to talk to him about
Yeah.
anything, And she didn't know how he was going to react. Does that mean that she doesn't really know him, or does that mean she doesn't trust him, or is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And going off of that, Elizabeth has a conversation with Rosemary and they talk about this exact thing. And
Mhm.
I am on Rosemary's side with this. She should talk
Mhm.
to Lucas. And I think that, like she said, Elizabeth is afraid to talk to Lucas because he's a businessman and he
Mhm.
could choose to take the job offer, unlike Jack.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, the fact that she was afraid to talk to him cuz she was afraid he might be tempted, it just tells me that they should have some more conversations,
Yeah.
because you can only do the same wavelength thing
Hmm.
for so long until you're going to
Yeah.
reach a point where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I am 100% sure what this person's going to do, and then
Yeah.
maybe they don't, or maybe
Yeah.
suddenly you have doubts. So I just think more communication on their part
Yes.
is going
Yes.
to be very important.
Hmm.
And who knows, maybe later in the season, we'll actually see them have a need to communicate, or
Yeah.
maybe struggle a little bit with it. But
Yeah.
right now, they are thinking the same things, but at the same time, I did see a lot of doubt from Elizabeth,
Hmm.
or at
Yeah.
least uncertainty. And to me, that's a little bit concerning if you're about to get
About
married,
to, yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's a big decision.
Yeah. I do have to say though, Rosemary offering the cookie was hilarious.
It was. It was.
You need a cookie.
Yeah.
Have a
Oh,
cookie.
that's another
All
classic
back.
when calls the heart thing. Maybe there were a lot more references to past seasons than I thought, actually, now that we're talking
Yeah,
about it.
there was another scene with Elizabeth and Rosemary when I think it was Rosemary that offered Elizabeth a cookie.
Yeah, oh, several times. I
Yeah.
mean, Abigail used to offer Elizabeth food whenever she was going through it in season
Yes.
1 and 2.
Season 1, I love that scene. I think it was
Was it
right
biscuits or
uh,
scones? I can't remember.
I think it was biscuits, yeah. It's right after Rosemary gets there, and
Mhm.
she and Elizabeth are, like, peeping through the window watching Jack and Rosemary, and
Yes.
then they start to walk off, and Abigail's like, "Would you like a warm biscuit, or would a warm biscuit make you feel better?" And she gives the biscuit to Elizabeth, and, I think Abigail says something along the lines of, "And if Jack should come calling or asking for you," and Elizabeth, as she takes the plate of biscuits, she's like, "Tell him I'm not interested," or "Tell him I'm busy."
Yes. Busy eating this whole plate of biscuits. Yeah, I remember that. That was quite funny.
Yes.
Yeah, and there were 2 times after that with Elizabeth and Rosemary with the
Mary,
cookies. I think
yeah.
it's season 7, and then there was a time in season 8 as
Season
well.
9, I think.
Maybe
10?
in season 9 as well.
I think it was about the book reviews, maybe.
Yeah. I know. Okay, book reviews. In season 8, there was one. I think it was when she was about to talk to Nathan about Fort Clay.
Maybe.
And then in
Yeah.
season 7, when Lucas sent her writing to his mom.
Oh, yes.
The
I think so.
3 times. So it is kind of a thing for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun callback.
Yeah. Elizabeth's talk with Agatha in the schoolhouse. What did you think about this?
Oh, um, it was very like lots of, like I don't want to say manipulation,
Yeah.
but a lot of like, like planting seeds and kind of,
Yeah.
like Aunt Agatha's trying to like pull her into the web and you can kind of sense it and Elizabeth's not having it. At the same
It,
time her worry is like growing at this
yeah.
point. Yeah.
It
But I
kind
did
of
think it was interesting that Agatha was sitting in watching the class. I kind of thought that was cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of surprised me how much Agatha was trying to persuade Elizabeth because, like Elizabeth said, I thought you knew by now that this is where I want to be. This is my home.
Yeah. Exactly. And Aunt Agatha of all people surprised me.
I know.
Because you
Yeah.
think season 2, Aunt Agatha was kind of the scandalous one, where
Yeah.
she enjoyed all the dime novels and everything
Yeah.
like that, and she's like
Yeah.
kind of, encouraging them to kind of
Mhm.
break the mold a little bit.
Yeah.
So it did surprise me that Agatha was kind of the
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
like trying to bring them back in,
Mhm.
but you know,
Yeah.
I am disappointed though that her family
Yeah.
still does not get it,
Yeah. Mhm. Lucas and Elizabeth have a conversation about Henry and Hamilton, then they get interrupted
Hmm.
by Gustav being upset about the turnips.
First it's beets, now it's turnips.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
did like the little moment they had talking about Henry. I thought that was nice.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that was yeah, I always like you know, when the town is like concerned about Henry and they're all
Mhm.
kind of rallying
Yeah.
to, make his life better and
Yeah.
help him to move on. I always appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Now we'll get into this a little bit more with other characters, but I'll go ahead and mention part of it now. The farewell picnic lunch,
Mhm.
which is in Julie and Agatha's honor because they will be going home soon. Ned and Florence tells Julie and Agatha about the Founders Day play. Another reference.
Yes, that's true. Okay, now that you're saying all of these references, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Actually, there were quite a few. I
Yeah.
appreciated that. I feel
Yeah.
like of all people to consider the Founders Day play like the pride and joy of the town, it would be Florence.
Yes.
It would be Florence
That's one of my favorite episodes of the series.
for sure.
And then Minnie tells Julie and Agatha about the community dinner because Minnie says if they were going to stay longer, they would be welcome to join for the next one.
Hmm.
And I loved
And
that.
I loved that too. And not to like get out of the story
Hmm.
so much, but I do feel like this is a conscious effort on the writer's part to really bring back that community feel because the last
Yes.
2 episodes have ended with community oriented scenes of
Yeah.
a dinner taking place, and it
Yes.
might not always be a dinner, but I do sense that they're really making an effort to
Hmm.
bring back that community aspect.
Yes.
And as someone who's been advocating for that for like years
Yeah.
now, I'm totally happy with
Yeah.
that. So happy with
That's
it.
one of my favorite parts of the show.
For sure. Yes.
Bill and Elizabeth at the hot springs. Now, this was during the picnic lunch. Their short little conversation I thought was really sweet when he
Mhm.
says, "You don't give up on people. It's your gift. Be proud of it."
Mhm. Yeah. Super sweet.
Yeah. And then Lucas and Elizabeth have a talk with Agatha. Of course, they decide to stay in Hope Valley and promise to visit
Mhm.
someday.
I'm glad they added the promise to
Yeah,
visit,
yeah.
because even if Elizabeth's family does, like, pull those tactics sometimes,
Mhm.
they do deserve to, get to know their
Yes, I
grandson,
agree.
and yeah, I think they're entitled to that,
Yeah.
so
That's a hope for season 11 for me,
yeah, you
seeing
never know.
little Jack with his grandparents, because we never saw that in
I
season
know, we always just
5
hear
or
about
6.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, yeah. I'm with you. That would be
yeah,
really, really sweet for sure.
yeah. Especially thinking back to the scene in season 5 when Jack goes to ask William's permission,
Mhm.
and he says something along the lines of, "Those are gonna be your grandkids. You're bouncing on your knee."
Mhm. Yeah, and it's true. It's true now. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. I think that would be really sweet
yeah.
for sure. Also, I do think it was interesting how easy it was for Lucas and Elizabeth to kind of put that whole issue like to rest
Mhm. Yeah.
compared to season 2, where,
Yeah,
Jack like refused the job offer, and then it was a whole thing.
the whole season.
Yeah, it was a whole season long issue, whereas like Lucas just had to say no, and then that was it. I think it's a sign that Elizabeth's family has, even if they haven't fully accepted what she wants, they're at least,
Mhm.
little more understanding this
Yeah,
time around.
yeah.
And also Lucas is wealthier than Jack, so
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
yeah.
The group photo with everyone taken by Ned,
Mhm. Of course.
and yes.
Man of
And
many
then
talents.
the goodbyes to Julie and Agatha, I thought that was a nice moment as well. This
Mhm.
line is one of my favorites in the episode, and it's when Agatha tells Elizabeth, "You've been given a second chance to find happiness. Hold on to it with everything you have."
Mhm. I love when people, acknowledge that, Jack happened, but
Mhm.
also Lucas happened too. I don't like
Yes.
when people separate it like completely. So I really liked that line because
Yeah.
it kind of, it
Yeah.
culminates that yes, Jack happened and
Yeah.
it was great, but at the same time Lucas is happening and that's like your
Mhm.
second chance, and
Yeah.
like definitely take it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that line too. It's
Yeah.
a really good line.
Do we want to move on to Nathan and Allie? Again, we didn't get enough of them in this episode.
Literally, how many scenes did they have in this one? Like 1 maybe?
Nathan had one, two, three, three, and
Okay.
then Allie had one, but she didn't really talk in that scene.
Mhm. Yeah. Sure, yeah, let's move on to that.
Yeah. Nathan at the ice cream shop slash pharmacy with May.
Mhm.
That was funny.
It
May
was pretty
catches
funny.
him
Kinda turns
eating the
around and he's
ice
like,
cream. I
You
didn't
caught
think
me."
you'd mind if I helped myself.
Mhm. Yeah.
Nathan's shoulder is acting up. He grabs his right shoulder in this scene. Now, when we get to it, I have an observation. I think you know what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I noticed it immediately. I was like, "Wait a second." Let's just
But
say that was a blooper that wasn't taken out of the episode.
we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Nathan is asking for a refill on the pain relievers, and May says, "Maybe you should hold the leash with your good arm." And then we find out that he saw another doctor in Benson Hills, Dr. Mortimer. Is he avoiding Faith? I wrote in my notes, question mark. I think so.
I have a few theories. I think it could be that he's avoiding Faith, but at the same time, I think it could also be, since we don't actually know what happened between them,
Mm-hmm.
it could be that maybe she told him she couldn't be with him because he was her patient and
I've
she was
thought
his
that too.
doctor. And what crossed my mind was that maybe he's going to this other doctor to remove that obstacle.
Yes, I've thought that too.
Yeah. But of course, it could just be him avoiding her
Yeah.
too at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, which,
Yeah.
it is what it is. But, I
Yeah.
it was funny because of just getting off of Chesapeake Shores for like a
Mm-hmm.
split second, I was like, "Oh no, are we going down the addiction route?" I
I
was
hope
like,
not.
"Please no, please no." But yeah, no, when he said that, I was like, "Okay, okay, we're not doing that right now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing. I was like, please don't do this again.
I was like, "No." I've seen too many storylines like that in the last like 5 years. I'm good.
Yeah. May thinks it's time to start acting like friends, referring to
Hmm.
him and Faith. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is that going to happen? Who knows?
I hope so.
I mean, I at least hope they can be in the same proximity without being super awkward.
Yes. Same.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nathan and Faith, that conversation in the saloon.
Oh gosh. I don't even know what to say anymore because as you know, I'm like very into Nathan and Faith, but Faith was
This,
not Faith was
uh-uh.
not winning me over in this
No, not in
episode
this
at
scene.
all. Yeah.
No.
And I mean, sure, Nathan's a little bit grumpy right now,
Yeah.
but given everything that's going on, I can understand
Mm-hmm.
why. But Faith was just not winning me over. I think
No.
what the problem is that we actually need to know
We need
what
to know
happened.
what, yeah,
Yeah, because I
exactly.
can't like understand where her like anger is coming from towards
Mm-hmm.
him if we don't actually know what
Yeah.
happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because she even says to him in that scene, she's like, "Oh, we haven't really talked since," and then leaves it off there. And you're kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, what was the since?
That's,
Spit it out."
yeah.
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 What were your thoughts on that scene?
The same as yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that line, for the record, I didn't end anything. You know why? Because there was nothing to end.
Ugh. Ay, 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 Faith, come on. I feel bad for Nathan that this is
Yeah.
like it's happening all over again.
Yeah.
And technically according to what we know, it sounds like she's already like ended things with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the second time that he's kind of gone through that. And that's like I don't know. I just feel like that's so hard on him, and
Yeah.
it's kind of cruel by the it's
Yeah.
cruel by the writers. They need to
Yeah.
actually just
I
like
know.
make him
Yeah.
happy.
I love Faith, but she was not winning me over in that scene.
Mm-mm. No.
Nathan has a conversation with Mike. It was brief, but it's before he goes on his rounds. He holds his left shoulder this time. Which one is it? Is it his right or is it his left?
It's the left. It's not the right. It's the right shoulder is the one he's holding when he's talking to Mike. The wrong shoulder is when he is with May. And yeah.
Notice it until I rewatched it. I was like, wait, he's holding both shoulders.
See, I noticed it was the wrong shoulder in the scene with he and May the first time I watched it. I'm like, oh no. It's the wrong shoulder.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Even I think Kevin actually commented about it cuz there was a Instagram account that like pointed out the
Yeah.
mistake and he was like, "Well, it was a traumatizing accident." I think he knows.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's pretty funny though.
Yeah. Mike also mentions in that moment that Faith is on her rounds in an area with bandits, and he goes right after Faith.
Yeah.
This, in a way, now it could just be me, in a way, this reminded me just a little bit of, I think it was season 1, episode 10, when Jack is on his way to Cape Fullerton for his new posting, and he runs into, I think it was those 3 Mounties, and they're talking about the Tolliver gang, and the one goes, "Oh, he was found or seen in a little town just outside of here, Coal Valley," and then Jack like
Jack's just like, nope, going back. Yeah. You're
going
right,
back.
actually. It's very much like that. I mean, Nathan didn't have to ride like across half the country to get back,
Yeah,
but like, yeah, no, you're totally right. I didn't
yeah,
even think of that comparison.
yeah. I
Yeah.
love how that Mounty's just like, "Where are you going?"
Yep. I think it shows in Nathan's case that he does still
Care
have
about Faith.
feelings for her, or at
Yeah.
least care about her.
Mhm.
We don't know what happened between them. We don't even know if he expressed
Yeah,
feelings for her,
yeah.
but it's pretty clear the way he was just kind of like, like
Mhm.
off to go save her, that, there is something there,
Yeah.
I think.
Speaking of Nathan saving Faith, that is one of my favorite moments in this episode. Just a
Yeah.
little Mountie action we got.
You gotta love the Mountie action.
Yes.
I have kind of a
Mixed feelings.
love-hate relationship with that scene, because I do
Yeah, me
like it a
too.
lot, and it's very funny, and the banter is very good,
Mhm.
and they really play off each other well, and I
Mhm.
appreciate that. I
Yeah.
do think that there were certain moments that they should have played up the sparks a little bit
Yeah.
more. Like when
Mhm.
he caught her, like I was fully expecting them to kind of like get lost in each other's eyes or something,
Yeah.
but it didn't happen. And then maybe
No.
something when he helped her back into the wagon, but it didn't happen. And
Yeah.
maybe this is me me being influenced by the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice with him helping her into the
Oh,
wagon. Like,
yeah.
yeah, that's probably where my
Yeah.
vision is coming from. But
Yeah.
there were a few moments where I feel like they could have played up the sparks just a
Yeah.
little bit, but other than that, I thought it was really
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. It did slightly bother me how she was just a little stubborn in that scene
Yeah, cuz I
about
can I can take stubbornness, but she was a little over the top in that
yeah.
scene. Like a little bit like, all right, you're getting a little bit
Yeah.
irritating right now.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
maybe she'll snap out of it once they,
Yeah.
figure it out or whatever.
And of course, Scout comes just in time.
Just in time. Yep. I love how Faith is like, "Oh, Scout," and Nathan's
Yeah.
like, "Don't encourage him."
That was
Yeah,
funny. And then we have Allie with little Jack and Lucas at the hot springs. I thought that was a cute moment.
that was really cute. I love how like you have Elizabeth and Joseph and then Nathan, and they're all watching their kids by the hot spring. It's just so
Yes.
cute. It was so cute. I loved it.
Yeah, that was really cute. On to Faith, Fiona, and May. The first scene talking about Nathan and Scout. Fiona, he is in over his head. Faith, Nathan or Scout?
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Oh my goodness. Also, question, Fiona works at the cafe now?
Yeah, I was a little confused by that, but then again, this is Fiona who jumps around to like every single
Yeah,
job like Hickam, so
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
yeah. I'm sure she'll do a great job. I hope
I'm
we
sure
have
she
more
will.
scenes with Fiona in the cafe.
Me too, yeah.
Faith, Fiona, and May finding Bill singing in the hot spring. That was one of the funniest moments in the episode.
That was hilarious. Me and my entire family were absolutely dying at that part. It was so funny.
My dad was even laughing at that moment.
My dad was like crying laughing. And he never laughs unless it's like something he thinks is ridiculous.
Now, it really would have been funny if Bill was singing the song by Jack. Like,
Yes. That would have been perfect.
all
Oh my
right.
gosh. Yes, I would have died. That's so funny. You're right. That would have been the cherry on top.
And the swimsuit and him trying to hide, that was so funny.
Yeah.
Moving on to the second part of Fiona, Faith, and May at the hot spring with Bill. When he says that he has to get back to town, Fiona's like, go ahead, we're not stopping you.
Poor Bill.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
They have a conversation later on at the saloon. Faith found a book on hydraulic mineral springs. The steam vapor somehow lets the lungs cure certain respiratory illness. That's probably why Bill is acting the way he is.
Probably. I mean, I love how Faith like immediately when she sees like
Hold on.
Bill's doing it and she catches on, she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go research this." And
Yes.
yeah, I really liked that.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm so glad Bill is like, you know, he's
Seems to be
getting
doing better.
better. I've
Yeah.
been hoping for that for a
Yeah.
long time now. So
Me
I'm
too.
very, very happy about
Yeah.
that.
Fiona mentions if there's something to this, the hot springs could become a tourist attraction. Bill's reaction to that was priceless.
He's like,
Like, oh,
wait a minute.
no,
Yeah.
the hot spring is only for me.
Yes. I did kind of chuckle because you know, May and Faith are like talking about the medical properties of the
Yeah.
hot springs, and because you know they're pharmacist and doctor, and then you have Fiona who's like the businesswoman, and immediately she's like, "Ooh, we can make some money this way."
Yeah.
Like, yep, that makes
Yes.
sense. That
Yes.
figures.
Yes.
Yeah.
The conversation with Faith, Ned, Florence, Fiona, Molly, Mike, and May about the run in with the bandit, and the mention of Nathan escorting Faith on her rounds. I love how Ned and Florence are like, Nathan!
Yeah, I mean, you got Florence who's like not so subtly matchmaking there. That was very, very funny.
Oh,
And poor poor Mike. He wants to be the one. He really likes Faith, I
yeah,
think. And
yeah,
he wants to be the one, but obviously they volunteer Nathan instead. I don't
yeah.
know how I feel about the possibility of a Nathan, Mike,
Please, no.
Faith triangle. I'm just like, I don't know. I
Please,
mean,
no.
part of me would be more okay with that than I would with like a full on May, Nathan, Faith triangle. I don't know why. I
Yeah.
think the reason why I feel that way is because it would give Nathan a chance to like, you know, win somebody over in a way that like, you know, he
Hmm.
didn't in the
Yeah,
last love triangle, you
yeah.
know. So I feel like
Hmm.
that would be okay, but at the
Yeah.
same time I can understand where people are coming from when they say, "I don't want that."
Please, no. We talked about this last week. No more love triangles in Hope
Yeah,
Valley.
I'm so done. I mean, it's hard enough to watch Faith be like kind of snippy a little bit, but to add a love triangle to that would just be no. No, no, no. Yeah.
Hashtag team no triangles.
Yep. Team no triangle. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Moving on to Lee and Rosemary. I had some nice moments in this episode as well. The first one is when they are at work. Lee's potential future client, Lawrence Barnaby, who turned him down 2 weeks ago, has an even bigger project now and is coming through town. Of course, Lee is taking him to lunch. And then they go on talking about the wedding planning and meeting that Rosemary is going to have with Elizabeth, Julie, and Agatha. And I love how Rosemary says, simple can still be elegant. And then Lee has his response, and then Rosemary says, if it were up to them, Elizabeth would arrive in a golden carriage with a flock of doves carrying her train while an orchestra played the Marriage of Figaro.
And Lee's like, sounds like something you would want.
Yeah. Also, I feel like this is another callback to something Lee and Rosemary. It might have been with their wedding planning. Because I feel like there was a scene when Rosemary asked Mike if he could like get doves or something for their wedding.
Yeah, she had doves for the wedding, and Mike was in charge of taking care of them. But then the cage got left open, and they all flew away except for one because he was too fat to fly.
Yes.
That's what happened. Yes. So we all know that Rosemary would be having doves in her wedding.
Lee meets with Lawrence Barnaby. He ultimately declines Lee's offer if he can't match his competitor. And then after Rosemary and Elizabeth's little eavesdropping while playing chess, she interrupts. And we find out that Rosemary met Mr. Barnaby at a convention years ago in Union City.
I don't even want to know what she was doing at the convention. But
oh no,
I do think that's hilarious.
Yeah. And she has also met his wife too.
Mm-hmm.
I think she said she had lunch with her or something along those lines.
Yeah,
Which was pretty funny.
That was a funny funny little connection she made there. I was surprised she didn't tell Lee about that beforehand.
Yeah, me too. And
yeah.
And before Rosemary interrupts, I like how Elizabeth says she doesn't feel right about the eavesdropping.
Yeah. Well, this is Rosemary she's talking to. So,
yes.
Yeah.
While at the picnic lunch, Lee mentions to Rosemary how Barnaby changed his mind and decided to offer a 2-year contract. And then they share a sweet kiss, which I love.
Yeah, that was really, really sweet.
Yeah.
And it's funny because my dad was very proud of himself because he guessed that's what Lee was going to say. He was like, oh, I didn't promise a 1-year contract. I promised a 2-year contract. And then when Lee said it, my dad was like, I was right. He was very proud of himself.
Yeah. I figured Mr. Barnaby was going to come around at some point in the episode. I just didn't know when.
Yeah, because he seemed like a nice guy. I mean,
yeah,
he didn't seem like some of the other people that Lee has had to deal with over the years. He seemed very reasonable and actually eager to like listen to Rosemary talk. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, he'll probably give him the deal. And sure enough, he did. So,
yeah. Following up, Rosemary, like Fiona, thinks that they could market the hot spring. And this is when Lucas comes over. And then Lucas suggests to Cooper he should name it since he's the one that found it. At first, Lucas suggests Cooper's Creek, but then, Cooper doesn't want to do that because it has his name on it, or it would have his name on it. So he says Hope Springs. And then Rosemary, being Rosemary, says, I can see the headline now. Hope Springs Eternal. Locals flock to healing waters of Hope Valley.
Yes, that was very Rosemary. And the way she like described that headline, it almost sounded like she was like offering people like the fountain of youth or something.
Yes.
I thought that was so funny.
This, I think, was my top favorite scene in the episode. Rosemary's conversation with Elizabeth about family.
Mhm.
Rosemary's mother left when she was very young. Rosemary wonders if her mother was never meant to have children, but compliments how great her father was. And she's worried she won't be a good mother herself.
Hmm. Yeah. I was I was a little shocked to hear that about Rosemary's
I
mom.
was too, because we hadn't
Yeah.
really heard a lot of Rosemary's backstory.
Yeah. And I know for years people have been saying, "Oh, I would love to meet Rosemary's mom. I would love to meet Rosemary's family." And now we hear Rosemary's mom left like when she was young. I was like,
Hmm.
"Wow, that's not what I was expecting." Also,
Yeah,
it's very interesting that, she was raised by a single dad who's a Mountie.
Mountie.
That was interesting to me because, apparently Nathan's not the only single dad Mountie out there.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see a conversation with Nathan and Rosemary about
Yeah.
that. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not saying that we couldn't possibly get one in the future, but just going back previous episodes, it would have been nice to see that earlier on.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I completely agree. I think that would have been interesting. But yeah, I love that scene, and you can really sense the fear in Rosemary of like
Hmm.
she doesn't want to like be a bad mom.
Yeah,
And she's like, Elizabeth's like, "Oh, you're gonna be a great mom," and Rosemary's like, "Oh, you promise?" Like you can
Thomas.
tell how scared she is, but
Yes,
Elizabeth, is just gonna be there for her
yes,
through thick
that
or
was
thin.
really sweet and
Yeah.
touching.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we had heard more of Rosemary's backstory earlier on, but
Yeah.
and so I'm glad we're hearing it now. But I do have a question slash theory. I wonder if Rosemary's mother is going to show up at some point.
Oh, I do not know, but that would be super interesting.
They've been
I
very
don't know.
tight-lipped, and my dad even thought while we were watching this, he's like, "Oh, they're setting it up for Rosemary's mother to come back."
It definitely could be. I think it's either going to be that she comes back, or they could even do that in season 11 as well.
Yeah, they could do that. Yeah.
Or it'll really affect Rosemary's, like early days and weeks of
Mhm.
motherhood, and like, making her like being hyper aware, hyper vigilant, and then
Yeah.
just her and Lee maybe having a conversation about that, or her and
Mhm.
Elizabeth
Yeah.
having a conversation about that.
Yes.
Yeah. But definitely leaves a lot of doors open for sure.
Mhm. It's not out of the question, especially considering how little we know about this season.
For sure, yeah. For sure.
Moving on to the Canfields, they had a couple of nice moments in this episode. Cooper asking Bill why the no swimming sign is still up at the hot spring, and Cooper is like, "But you've been up there 6 times at least."
Yeah, and then you have Minnie in the background. She's like, wait a minute.
And Fiona too. She's like, "What is this hot springs I'm hearing about?"
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
that was pretty funny.
I loved this scene too, and it is Minnie's conversation with Molly and Florence at Abigail's. Minnie
Hmm.
wants Molly's recipe for the cookies, and I love how Florence says, "Everything tastes better when someone else makes it."
That is true. I can
Yes,
testify to that.
yes,
Especially when it comes to baking. I will say that's 100% true.
yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Molly and Florence are commenting on how her and Joseph hold the town together. I thought that was really sweet.
Hmm.
And then Minnie mentions her worry about Joseph pushing himself too hard. When he's not helping at the cafe, he's at the mill. When he's home from the mill, he's up late writing his sermons.
Yeah. I remember hearing that and I was like, "Oh wow, he's like, obviously he's doing all of the work things, but he's
Hmm.
also putting a lot into being pastor too in
Yes,
this season." And I really appreciate that
I did
because
too. Yeah.
when he first came, he didn't want to be pastor. And then in season 9, he was kind of figuring out the work
Hmm.
piece.
Yeah.
But this season, I guess he's doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
And, I've liked his sermons so far in all
Me
the
too.
episodes, so
Yeah.
I think it's for the best.
Yeah. And there is, I believe, one more scene, and it's with Joseph and Henry, which I will get to in just a few minutes, since we are going to start talking about Henry now.
Oh gosh.
Oh, Henry in this episode.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
You're breaking my heart, Martin Cummins.
I'm just like, I get that you're very good at this, like playing the depths of despair through Henry, but at some point, the poor guy has to have some happiness. I'm sorry, but I don't know. I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah. Let's start with Bill with Lucas and Lee in his office. The judge arrives from Union City the following day for the pretrial to determine the validity of the charges. Lucas has their correspondences since starting the oil company, as well as their contracts. Bill spoke with someone close to the judge and believes they can make a case that Henry's actions saved lives and he couldn't, in good conscience, allow the mine to reopen. And of course, Henry is not there. He is late.
Mhm. Yeah.
I have a question about this scene.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have the same question. Now, I know Lucas had involvement in this, but Lee, that kind of confused me.
Yeah. I was very confused that Lee was there. I think it could be maybe he's acting as a character witness,
He
possibly.
could, yeah,
Um, I know why Lucas is there,
yes,
because co-owner of
he,
the oil
yeah,
company, yada yada,
mm-hmm.
whatever. We won't go down the technicalities
Yeah,
because the oil storyline was scrapped for a reason.
yes,
But yeah, I don't really know why Lee is there. Although I do think that we are gonna figure it out at some point.
mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think they just threw him in there willy-nilly.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Lee is there, why wouldn't Nathan there be too? That be there
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah,
But it's just I think we're gonna figure out more of what's
I
going
think so
on
too.
later.
Yeah,
Yeah, it did confuse me though.
yeah. Bill finds Henry at the stable. He confronts him about missing the meeting and mentions how it seems he wants the case to fall apart. Bill says, I'm here to help you, but I can't help you if you keep sabotaging yourself. And we hear Henry say he doesn't want to rehash some of the worst days of his life.
Yeah, and I totally get that. Henry
Yeah, I do too.
doesn't want to get triggered again, because the whole thing I'm sure is very triggering for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have some thoughts, but we'll get to that later. I
In
do
the
think
second, yeah.
that being his reason is valid, but at the same time, I also don't think that's actually his reason. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I don't think that's what's happening.
And let's just talk about that pre-trial meeting. Bill believes the charges arose for no other reason than Jerome Smith and his company seeking retribution against an honorable man for doing the right thing. Henry has been charged with one count each of disorderly conduct, trespassing, and destruction of property. If he's found guilty, like we already know, he can face up to 6 years in prison. And then he pleads guilty. Oh, Henry, 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 Henry.
I listen. I love Henry. I've stood by Henry, and I really want him to have that redemption story. But if you are given a second chance at life, you should take
Why
it.
are you
I'm
sabotaging it?
just like, what are you doing? I don't know. I don't know. I know why he's doing it. It's because he feels guilty and he feels like he should be punished. That's why he's doing it. I know
Mhm.
that already. But at the same time, Henry, literally everyone is trying to help him out of jail. Everyone is doing what they need to do to help him get out of jail and give him a second chance at life to, make up for what he did. But no, he wants to go to jail. So I don't know. At this point, I'm at the point where I'm like, should I feel sorry for Henry or should I be frustrated with Henry? I don't know. I'm just
I
like,
think it's both.
why? Maybe, I don't know. I just feel like we've done this for over 6 seasons now, where Henry has been on
Yeah,
this path of redemption, and
redemption.
I'm just like,
Then
can we see the end of the tunnel, please? Like,
yes, and then something just brings us right back in the tunnel.
exactly. And I'm part of me is like, I feel like, and this isn't even like a Henry thing, but I almost feel like the writers just like writing that. They like writing that, like, complicated, like, man
Why?
against the world. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it's become a crutch for Henry's story. I don't know. I'm just like, please, no. Let's not do this again. Let's
Come
not.
on, writers.
It's like, please don't take us down the tunnel again,
Please.
please. We had Henry praying last season. We
Yes.
had him happy in the finale because he did the right thing. Let's just move on from there. Let's not go
Yes.
back
Yes.
into, yeah, I don't know. So that's where I'm
Still,
at. Sorry for the rant. That's where I'm at.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Still, as Henry is walking out of the judge's office, asks the judge who is there for the pretrial for a continuance to give him some time to actually think.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm just hoping that they can, track back and salvage the trial, because right
Mhm.
now it's not looking good. It's not looking good at
Mm-mm.
all. And
No.
a lot of judges and lawyers and people in general have had a lot of, like, patience with Henry
Yeah.
over the years, and I just
Mhm.
feel like he's pushing it a little bit here. Like, what if he changes his mind? Like,
Yeah.
that's going to be very hard to
Yeah.
backtrack from.
Let's
So,
just start with Judge Parker in that
yeah.
trial in season 2.
Yeah.
This was an eye roll moment for me, and it is Lucas having a conversation with Jerome. Okay, Jerome is ruthless.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Remind me what he said in that scene.
Lucas basically asks Jerome to have mercy for Henry and how he tried to save lives. And basically, Jerome just goes on a rant how he's surprised Lucas feels this way and that he believes Henry belongs behind bars.
Yeah. I mean, we knew Jerome was bad news from season 9. We
9.
already knew that. Henry knew that. Lucas knew that. The only one who
Mhm.
didn't, well, even she kind of knew it, but Fiona didn't really know
Fiona.
that. And I think this is going to come back to bite both Henry and Lucas, actually. Like, Lucas having that conversation with Jerome and Jerome being surprised that Lucas is
Mhm.
standing with Henry. I do have a feeling that's either going to come back to bite Lucas or it's just going to make things worse for Henry, but I do think it might affect Lucas too,
Yeah,
somehow. Yeah.
I
So we'll
think so too.
see. Yeah.
Ooh.
Which also, while we're talking about things that might come back to bite, I kind of want to throw this in there because I forgot to
Mhm.
add it earlier.
Yeah.
but I do think that the bandit that got away, that's gonna come back.
I think so too.
I think so. Like, you see, they spent a good 30 seconds showing Nathan pick up that handkerchief. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason. I think that maybe the kid seemed harmless and they really emphasize that in the scene, like, oh, he's harmless. I have a feeling that's not actually the case. Even
Mm-hmm.
if it's not the kid, I think he's part of a bigger
Yeah.
thing. So
Part of me wonders if the bandit is going to have to do with the storyline that causes Nathan to get his medal.
yeah, yeah, I think it will. Although part of me thinks even after Nathan gets his medal, I think there's still gonna be
Some
something,
trouble.
some
Yeah.
trouble with that, involving that.
Yeah.
So we will
Yeah.
see. We will
Yeah.
see.
Henry has a conversation with Joseph, and like I just mentioned, he was given a week to reevaluate his feelings and make a final decision. But Henry won't budge. He still wants to plead guilty.
Come on, Henry. Why? He
Why
needs
are you doing
Abigail
this?
right now. That's what he
Yes,
needs. He needs
yes,
Abigail.
he does.
Yeah.
Moving on to Bill in this episode. We already talked about it a little bit, but the interaction with Mike and then Emily, Opal, and Timmy as he throws the ball back to them, I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
And then he talks to Faith, Fiona, and May.
I mean, like I said, it's so nice to see
Yeah,
Bill feeling better. And I
yeah,
think one thing I've seen among all of the Hardys since the episode aired
mm-hmm.
is that universally everyone was like, "Oh, I loved Bill's story in this episode," because it
Yes,
was funny and it was like, he's
yeah,
doing better than he has been
yeah,
in, a very long time. So
yeah,
I think everyone was very like, it was very refreshing for everyone to see
yeah,
Bill in a good place, I think.
yes. I like when he says, "When life gives you lemons," he walks away.
When life
I
gives you lemons.
I
Yep.
wonder if he was going to say, "When life gives you lemons, bathe in a hot spring" or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, but he almost gave himself away there, clearly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, he's been bathing in the hot spring for about a week. And Faith wonders if the steam is helping his symptoms. I think it is because he even
Hmm.
sounds better.
I think so too. I don't think he coughed once in the whole
I was
episode.
about to say
So,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely helping.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he should keep doing what he's doing.
Yes, exactly. Bill at the cafe with Molly and Minnie talking about the picnic lunch farewell for Julie and Aunt Agatha. Bill's line, "It's bug infested, it's a long hike, and you can't get the horses up there."
Creating all of these problems so
Yes.
nobody goes up there.
Um,
One thing that
Don't even
surprised
insist.
me about this scene was the fact that Bill and Molly, like, didn't, like, talk at all. Like,
I
weren't
know.
they a thing last season? Like, what
Yeah,
happened? I don't
I
know.
know. What's with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I feel like that happens sometimes with Bill's love
Yeah.
life. He'll be, like, into somebody and then it's like, "Oh, yeah, never mind." Like that time he kissed Dottie Ramsey and then that
Oh,
totally just didn't go anywhere. It's
oh,
one of those. I'll accept it. It's Bill. It's happened before.
yes. And Molly and Minnie talking about the striped bathing suit. That was hilarious.
Hmm. Yes, that was really funny.
Yeah.
Everyone knows, even
Yes.
if Bill thinks they don't.
Yep. And the last scene we see for Bill in this episode is him at the saloon looking at the paper.
Hmm. Yeah, that was sweet. It kind
Yeah.
of like represented him like letting go of
Yes.
that and accepting change. Like, you see the headline that the
Hmm.
springs have been discovered, which means
Yeah.
that that headline is an invitation for tourists, basically. Like, they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to
Yes.
send out flyers and say, come to the hot spring, but it's like, yeah, once you put it in the paper, it's out there for everybody. And he's
Yeah.
kind of just accepting that, which
Mm-hmm.
I think is
Yeah.
good, because not even just the benefits to him of the hot springs, but also Bill is a very anti-change person.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be hard for him with all the tourists in town, but
Yeah.
I think he's accepting that in
Mm-hmm.
that scene.
I think this was an overall good episode for 100, even though there
Yeah.
are things we would have changed. I would give
Yeah.
it an 8 out of 10. I think that's what I said on my ranking.
Okay. Yeah. I think you were a little higher on this episode than I
Mm-hmm.
was for various
Yeah.
reasons, but
Yeah.
I would give it about a 7 or a 7.5, so not too
That's
far off.
fair. Yeah.
But I liked it better than the first one.
Yeah.
Not that the first one was bad. The first one was
Yeah.
great too. This one just had a little bit more happening in it, and I
Yes.
like that.
I agree.
I am hoping that we'll get a little more clarification with Nathan and Faith, which I think
Yes.
is the biggest question on people's minds right
Yeah.
now. And if it doesn't come in the next episode, I'm gonna start getting a little impatient, I think. But
Yeah.
for now I'm okay with it, because we're only 2
Yeah.
episodes in,
Yeah.
Can't have it all at once. There's got to be a story,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I
Mm-hmm.
think we should start
Yeah.
unraveling that,
Yeah.
a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah, overall, not a
I
bad
agree.
episode.
Yeah.
Not like in like the top 10 or whatever, but
Yeah.
yeah, very 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 decent.
Enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about that preview next week before we wrap up. Bill, that first clip. These new people need to learn to follow the rules. And Lucas says, they're called tourists. They're good for the town. And then this new kid, we don't know his name yet. He's like, are you a real cowboy? He's the same one in the promo with
the bell,
the
yeah.
bell.
One just like ding 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 ding, yeah. That's
Yes.
the kid. Yeah.
Yep. Elizabeth, Rosemary still thinks the shower is next week. Rosemary, I made a list of suggested activities. Fiona, I'll keep her busy at the salon. Rosemary, Elizabeth, the seating arrangement, games. What about the party games? Faith and Nathan. And then the Hope Valley women surprising Rosemary for her baby shower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think next week it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of colorful baby shower / like tourists showing up in their like 20s bathing suit type stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a very like fun episode. I am a little bit worried that the whole baby shower party planning thing will get a little bit old.
Too much, maybe? Yeah.
Well, it's just we're already planning a wedding, baby shower. It's just like there's a lot of party planning going on. But I think it's gonna be a blast. So I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I'm excited to see what happens with Nathan and Faith, because they were in the end of that preview a little bit. And also we know that the boy who was ringing the bell, he's related to the new woman in town.
Yes, I was about to say that.
Yeah, so we're gonna find out a little bit more about her, and I'm very intrigued by her, so I'm excited.
Baby showers are always fun, so I think it'll be a fun episode next week.
Yeah, I think so.
And then I think episode 4 is when the baby is born, so.
That's right, yes. I am so excited for that episode.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. That one's probably going to be one of the highlights of the season.
Yes, for me too, because Lee and Rosemary are my favorite.
Yes.
Well, this was so much fun. Thank you again, Theresa, for joining me for episode 2. I can't wait to chat again next week about episode 3.
I'm so excited. Can't wait.
Too. All right, Hearties. I think that wraps up our review of When Calls the Heart, Season 10, Episode 2, Hope Springs. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you can like this video. And if you want to hear our thoughts about the rest of the season or any of my movie reviews for Hallmark, Great American Family, or Up TV, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. We hope you have a great day or night wherever you are in the world, and we will see you next time. We love y'all. Bye.